My wife, 41, and I, 43 male, have been married for 5 years, and we both have kids from previous relationships. I have 2 sons, 20 and 18. The oldest is in college, and my youngest will start college this coming fall. My wife has 3 kids, 21, 19, and a teen. Her 2 oldest are also in college, and I'm sure her youngest will attend college as well. My wife and I mostly share our finances regarding shared expenses, but college expenses have always been kept separate. My ex-wife and I started 529 college plans for our kids when they were younger, so they both have a fair amount available to them. My stepkids have had to take out loans to pay for their college because my current wife and her ex couldn't save much to help them. This has caused some animosity between my wife and me because she sees this as me not treating my stepkids the same as my bio kids. We've always tried to treat all the kids the same, but obviously, this sets them on uneven grounds regarding student debt, and by a large margin. This issue has been compounded recently after I got a large chunk of money via inheritance. This money was willed only to me. I used quite a bit to pay off a car loan and credit card debt. I also invested some of it. I planned on giving the remaining to my sons after they graduate college as kind of a starter fund to do whatever they want. I figure they can use it to pay off any remaining debt, make a down payment for a house or car, travel, invest, or whatever they want. I've not told my sons about this plan yet. My wife is upset with me for not giving any of this inherited money to my stepkids. She said that since my kids already have money saved for college, I should help my stepkids out so that it evens the playing field between them a bit. She thinks I'm playing favorites with my kids and setting them up for more success than her kids. She wants me to use all the money I plan to give my sons as a starter fund and distribute it equally amongst her 3 kids and not give my sons any. I shot that idea down immediately, and she countered by at least giving all 5 of the kids an equal amount so no one could claim favoritism. I shot that idea down as well because, well, it wasn't my stepkid's relative that died. This is money that I inherited, and I feel I get to decide what I want to do with it. I already used a substantial amount to help with debt that my wife and I share, and also invested in our future together. I understand my wife is upset that her kids are being saddled with thousands in student debt, but her inability to save before I even met her is not really my problem to solve. I can kind of understand her view that I'm playing favorites with my kids over hers, but I would never behave the way she is if our roles were reversed. She thinks I'm being an idiot about this and is threatening to tell her kids that I'm planning to give my sons thousands of dollars while they get nothing. Edit. When we got married, my wife was receiving child support from her ex, while I was paying child support to my ex. She always ensured that the money she got from her ex was all spent on her kids, which it should have been. We kind of had an unspoken agreement that money for our kids was separate from other shared family expenses. Her ex is involved, and he's a good guy. He never missed a single child support payment, and he's a good, loving father. But he works a blue-collar job, and it's not exactly enough to pay for college for 3 kids. You are the idiot. I'm planning to give my sons thousands of dollars while stepkids get nothing. That, my dude, is exactly what you're planning to do. You're setting yourself up for so much resentment and stress and arguments. The times are hard for young people. Between student loans, inflation, and a housing crisis, I totally get why your wife wants you to help. Are you really unable to find some sort of middle ground on that? Think of his kids and how they might feel knowing that instead of being set up after college, Dad had to spend money on stepbrothers so stepmom wouldn't freak out. This is why I would never get remarried. Your remarriage has the potential to screw your kids financially, and that's really a shame. She should have saved for her kids. She made sure that they were covered when she got child support and didn't have to worry about your kids then. She's just out to make sure her kids get the most they can. And if you fall for this, your kids get screwed. You are not the idiot. It was fine keeping money for kids separate when it benefited her kids. Now that keeping money for kids separate doesn't benefit her kids, she wants to change things up. Ha, your wife sounds like your soon-to-be second ex-wife. Between her threatening to tell her kids, manipulation much, and the clear resentment and jealousy over money, I don't think that your relationship can survive it. My nearly adult sister, 32, works in IT and has her dream job, which allows her to travel quite a bit and work remotely as she pleases. But beyond that, she makes really good money and seems to take more PTO than she actually does work. She's not outright obnoxious with her money, but she's still annoying. She's constantly sending photos of her trips to the family group chat. This year alone, she's visited 5 states and 3 different countries, some for work, some for her working remotely, but some just for fun. She has designer bags, a nice car, and all her loans paid off, a great apartment with a jacuzzi tub. She's also a philanthropist and volunteer. Last week, she invited my parents and me to a charity dinner where she was to receive an award for being an animal rescue's biggest donor ever. On top of that, she fosters animals of said charity. So you can imagine my parents are immensely proud of her. It's always looking at my beautiful, brilliant, philosophical, worldly, rich, compassionate daughter. And here's our youngest daughter. Yes, I am jealous of her. The other day, she took me to this expensive hibachi dinner. She told me she'd like to pay for my college in full, with the caveat that I'd do part-time work study, be in a minimum of 1 club, and when and if I were to end up making $70,000 a year after graduation, I'd pay her back over 10 years with no interest. She'll forgive the debt entirely if I don't get a job that makes that much by the time I'm 50. I tell her that if she had all this money to flaunt around, why was she making me pay it back? It's stupid and selfish of her, and if she's going to be like that, I don't even want her money. It's like, look at me. I have the money to pay for your college, but you don't get it unless you do what I want. And if you're successful, you have to pay me back. I ended up calling my parents for a ride home. She told them what happened, and they kept telling me that my sister was just trying to be generous and that I was acting like a spoiled brat. Am I the idiot for not accepting her handout? She spends money on herself and it makes you mad. She spends money to help others and it makes you mad. She offers you money, it makes you mad. Okay, you are the idiot, OP, and a jealous brat. Sister sounds like a legit saint. Would not have been surprised if the money OP paid back would end up in an account or a trust or investment vehicle for OP to use for their next big life event. Buy a home, marriage, retirement, starting a family, kids' college fund, etc., any or whichever applied. Instead, she was offended by the thought that her sister would put any, in my opinion, reasonable stipulations on how her own money was being spent and dared to suggest that OP pay it back at a reasonable and penalty-free rate, but only if and when she's financially able to do so. Unbelievable. Just wait until OP sees the interest rates. Your sister's giving you the opportunity to go to college, but wants to make sure you don't waste the experience. Having a part-time job to spend money on and joining at least 1 club to make friends with a shared interest are for your benefit, not hers. You don't seem to realize how incredibly lucky you are. You're extremely ungrateful. Typical jealous, short-sighted, immature teen attitude. Have fun with that student debt instead. So I, 25 male, recently became official with a lady I've been dating for 6 months. We decided to have the first barbecue of the nice summer weather in our area. We live separately currently. She decided to make steaks and baked potatoes, and I made some side salads, and I was also responsible for the drinks and chips. As my girlfriend got cooking, it just panned out that she ended up plating and serving to people as her steaks finished resting. When I went over to watch her plating, I noticed she had put butter and herbs and stuff all over the steaks. My family doesn't do this, and I've never seen it done this way. So I asked her politely if she would put mine aside and I'd do my fixings. I just want my steak with ketchup. I'm pretty plain. Both she, her sister, and her dad gave me very pointed looks. Later that evening, she said she felt that it was rude to the chef, her in this instance, to ask for my food separately, and that she wished I would have just trusted her to make me a nice plate of food, and that I shouldn't do that when I'm a guest anywhere. I frequently ask for my food to be made differently or more plain when I'm a guest somewhere or at a restaurant because I generally prefer plain food. I don't think this was rude. Am I the idiot for asking for my own food to be served differently outside of my own home? You are the idiot for putting ketchup on steak and calling it fixings. The proper thing to do was accept it as offered, eat some, and if you still want ketchup, then ask for it. You didn't even try it as offered. It may have been so fabulous that you didn't want ketchup. She was literally just flavoring the meat, and it wouldn't have hurt at all to just try it. It could have been leaps and bounds better than putting ketchup on it. Please, as an adult 25-year-old man, expand your palate. I promise things to taste better with seasoning and not just ketchup. Please. I will just say this once. Leave adults alone about their food preferences. I have 50 years of frustration at being looked down upon for being a picky eater when the taste of certain foods is just downright unpleasant to me. And yes, I've tried it. I promise. I've tried almost everything multiple times. It still tastes like crap. I cannot be more passionate about what I'm saying. People get to have their preferences, and as long as they don't expect others to go out of their way to accommodate them, they're fine. And no, asking his girlfriend to not put seasoning on it is not asking her to go out of her way. Not the idiot. That's a very odd reaction to a polite request. I call my kids boy, teen, and girl, mid-teen. I love The Simpsons, and I always thought it was funny that Homer referred to Bart as boy, and Bart called him Homer. With my father, everything was yes sir, no sir. I also constantly tell my kids I love and am proud of them. For some reason, the name thing puts a wild hair up my dad's butt. He was over last weekend, and he was vociferous about how I'm hurting his grandchildren by not calling them by their names. I told him that my kids were happy and to leave it alone. He just wouldn't drop it. So I called my kids over to where we were talking, and I asked them if they wanted to be called by their names instead of boy and girl. I said in return, they would have to call me sir, not daddy or dad. I said I would accept father in emotional conversations, but I would no longer remind them every day that I loved and was proud of them. They both did. They were happy with the status quo. They know what my relationship with my father's like. My father got all angry and said that's not what he wanted at all. So I asked him how often he told my sisters and me he loved us, or was proud of our accomplishments, or just as people. He said it was a different time, that his father was worse than him. So I asked him if he thought my kids were happier than myself and my sisters growing up. I pointed out that my kids are happy. They're reasonably well adjusted. Now he's being cranky, and my mom says he's upset that I think he was a bad father. He wasn't. He was just emotionally distant. I hated it. My sisters both had some therapy to help them choose better men. They both fell in love with any guy who gave them attention. My daughter knows her worth and won't settle for anything but the best. My son has no problem hugging me and telling me or his mom about his life. They're teens. I know I don't know everything that's going on with them, but I'm doing my best to be there and give them the support I never had. My kids know that they're loved. I don't just say it. I try my best to show it. My dad thinks I'm being an idiot for pointing out where he didn't do great as a father when he tried to criticize my parenting. You are the idiot for telling your kids you'll call them by their names, but they have to call you sir, and you'll no longer tell them that you love them. That's extremely manipulating. Also, it's weird that you call your kids boy and girl and not their names. Also, you should seriously go talk to someone about the issues in your childhood and try to make peace with them. Yeah, I thought that was weird too. Idiot move for sure. I called my mom, mom, and dad, dad, and they called me my name. Or idiot, but that was 1000% because of my doing as a late teen. OP should have asked what they wanted to be called, and that's it. Major idiot for using their kids in a fight with the grandfather. Hopefully this was a one-off thing, because that simple exchange could make a lasting impression on them. Agreed. I do have an issue calling your children boy and girl in terms of names, because it dehumanizes them and removes a key part of their identity, which is their name. Can you imagine going around at work and calling your boss woman or girl? You would immediately run into issues because people would find it extremely rude and won't allow it. But it's totally fine to do it to kids because they both don't know better and can't stand up for themselves yet. I, female 32, live with my partner and our 2 kids, ages toddler and preteen. My older sister Ava, 35, and her husband recently purchased a house locally. It's a super nice place with a big yard, and as you can probably guess from the title, a swimming pool. Ava recently hosted a barbecue at their place. It wasn't a huge event. She invited me, our parents, and our other siblings. She mentioned letting the kids play in the pool, so I only assumed my kids would be included. We're potty training, although my youngest is currently in diapers. At the barbecue, I was getting my youngest ready for the pool by changing him into a swim diaper. Ava pulled me aside and told me she doesn't think it's hygienic for my youngest to play in the pool since swim diapers don't hold pee, and she asked that he doesn't swim in the pool with the other kids playing in it. I didn't think this was fair and told Ava it would be no different at a public pool, so what's the problem? She was really condescending and wouldn't listen to me at all and said that he can play in the pool when he's toilet trained and said it's not fair on the other kids. At this point, my son was crying because he wanted to swim in the pool, and I told Ava she was being cold, but it's her house and her pool, so do what you want. Ava accused me of trying to guilt trip her and told me to just drop it. I was getting upset at this point, and I told our parents and other siblings about what Ava did. They told me it wasn't a big deal, and that it wasn't worth arguing with her over it, and I should try not to let it bother me. I wasn't happy with this, because this essentially meant that they were siding with her and downplaying how she treated me and my son. I left the barbecue early with my family because we didn't feel welcomed after that. The next day, Ava messaged me, a whole paragraph, and said that she was sorry that I was upset and that she wasn't trying to exclude my son for the sake of it. It was a super non-apology, and I told her I didn't want to hear it and that she's damaged her relationship with her nephew and she's not the one who had to deal with him being upset. Ava snapped at me out of nowhere and said I'm being dramatic. I told her to grow up and said that I had a very valid reason to be mad and that she needed to stop acting like a teenager. Ava showed these messages to everyone, and everything was just a bit up in the air. I feel like I'm right here, but the rest of my family doesn't seem to agree. You are the idiot. I told Ava it would be no different at a public pool, so what's the problem? But this isn't a public pool. It's her private pool at her house, and if she wants to set a rule, she should be able to make that call without being argued at. And she didn't damage any relationship with your kid. They're a toddler. They'll forget and get over this. OP, ultimately, you're continuing to escalate this situation. You can explain to your son that the pool is for potty trained kids. You must accept that your sister doesn't want kids who aren't potty trained in her pool, which is absolutely okay. And you need to get over it instead of holding on to it. I disagree. Everyone's the idiot here. She should have told you beforehand that only potty-trained kids were allowed in the pool. Of course your kids would want to swim, and of course you didn't think it would be an issue. She should have given you a heads up so you could have prepared. Sister was cruel to wait until the point that the poor child was already fitted out in his swim clothes to hear then that he wasn't allowed to swim.